Hi there, chaps. Kate Stirling here. Welcome to How to Live a Stirling Life, episode number 13. So we've been going now for over 3 months, which is very exciting. So thank you so much for continuing to listen. I hope, yes, as I said, did I say it? I'm not sure. My brain this week has not been particularly conscious, and sometimes that happens. Sometimes we just feel a little bit wiped out, and that's okay. And it's important to remember when that happens to take a break and to just slow down a little bit, because even though over the last year and a half we've been possibly going at a slightly slower pace anyway, there's been tons of other stresses that have been building up in our lives in connection to obviously the virus and the repercussions of that. So I hope wherever you are that you are really appreciating all that you are achieving by even just getting through the days sometimes, and giving yourselves the break where you need it and a chance to recover and kind of repair those energy levels. So welcome. Today I was going to explore something with you that I'm going to continue to explore with you. And it's based around a quote from Tony Robbins, who is, I don't know if you've heard of Tony Robbins, but he's like this super big identity, charismatic character who is like a coach and a mindset guru, and also like a business genius. So a lot of his work is based around mindset and an approach with that kind of thing. And he, the title of this podcast is taken from as inspiration from a quote that he once said, which is, "Life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you." And I just wanted to give that space to land, because when you think about it, that's super powerful. So life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And my interpretation of this is that it means that when shit happens, it doesn't always mean that the world is about to end. And apologies, I should have given you a warning there for the swearing. If you do have kids around, I do try and keep it pretty clean, but sometimes the words do slip out. Basically, it can feel sometimes when the world is against us, like nothing is going right, that it feels like everything is rubbish, that everything is going wrong, that, literally it's like that, once one thing goes wrong, everything goes wrong. And it's often because we get stuck then in a mindset that life is rubbish, nothing is good, everything is bad, nobody likes us, we're terrible people, and that becomes our narrative in our existence. And sometimes really tough things do happen, like really super tough things. I'm sure, I don't know if you're listening, maybe you've lost a job this year, maybe you've lost someone you loved very much, maybe this year has put so much pressure on your relationship that it just couldn't, get through to the end, and you've had to go through a really tough breakup. And these things are super painful and really tough to get through, but they also do hold a lot of power in what they can represent for change in your life. And I don't know if you can hear all the beeping, sorry. There's a dishwasher in the background. Anyway, you probably can't, hopefully you can't hear it. But coming back to this sense that sometimes when bad stuff happens, it really can start to be very challenging to keep positive and to find the light in dark situations. And, I often use the divorce that I went through as my example, because it literally felt like the rug was ripped out from under my feet. I lost my home pretty much. I didn't have any work, so I couldn't really be independent like I needed to be to process the divorce. I struggled beyond belief with the changes that it caused in my social life, because when you're in a group of friends and there's a breakup, it has a knock-on effect. And as a result of all of that, I started to lose hope for the future. I started to believe that the world was over, really. I literally remember being in my kitchen at my parents' house, because I went or their kitchen at my parents' house, and just having all sorts of horrible thoughts about the fact it would be easier just to go to sleep for a very, very, very long time, like for forever, than trying to find any positivity in the life ahead. And so it's real. The things we feel are really powerful, and they are super tough when when it kind of all layers up on top of each other. Because, you know, you read these stories about the knock-on effect. Someone loses their job, and then they lose their house, and then they lose their partner because their behaviour's changed, and then they lose their friends because their behaviour continues to change. And these things can have these huge snowball effects where it suddenly seems like everything really bad is just happening to this one poor person. And I'm not saying that what I'm about to share is going to fix all issues, but what I've learnt is that being able to identify, firstly, that life is full of potential, and that when something goes wrong, it doesn't mean that life is over, but also exploring a little bit more and sharing a bit more for you about the drama triangle that I touched upon last week. And I'm going to touch upon the drama triangle first because it is just so powerful. So the drama triangle was developed by a psychotherapist called Stephen Karpman, and I've again taken this from this book, Boundaries, How to Draw the Line in Your Head, Heart and Home by Jennie, Millar and Victoria Lambert. And seriously, it's like an absolutely life-changing book. I'm going to quote it a bit today, so I really recommend you read it if you're struggling ever with saying no to people, if you're struggling with ever standing up for yourself, if you're struggling with low self-esteem, if you struggle within your family environment to still live your life without feeling like, whatever's going on with your family, and maybe that's with your friends, or maybe it's just in your relationship. Maybe there are things in your relationship where you don't feel comfortable in certain situations, but you're saying, you know, you're going along with it because you're so anxious about saying no to someone that you have feelings for, that you love. Or maybe you're trapped in a relationship that isn't right, or a job that isn't right for you, and all this kind of stuff. Or maybe it's that, you know, you're becoming someone that you don't like. You know, I think there are times in our lives where we all do that. I did that. Like, some of the things the behavioural choices that I made over the last couple of years, mainly more, 5 or 6 years ago rather than 1 or 2 years ago now, were because I was in a place of deep pain and hurt and loss and just kind of confusion. So this drama triangle, so you're going to imagine that you've got an upside down triangle. So you've got the long base, and then you've got the point kind of at the bottom. So the long horizontal edge is at the top of the triangle. And that this is going to, basically, if you had a pen and you found a bit of paper and you drew from left to right, and then you went down 45 degrees towards like the top of the triangle, and then you went left back up to meet the other end. That's what the drama triangle looks like. And then on the left-hand side, you've got persecutor. On the bottom, you've got victim. And then on the right, you've got rescuer. And then what I didn't explain last week is that you also have these arrows in between, because we basically morph between these roles in our lives. So we're either in a rescuer mode, or a persecutor mode, or a victim mode. And basically, this drama triangle explains how we approach situations in life. And why it's powerful is that once you learn about it, and once you can identify the roles in social and or societal kind of situations, or home situations, or friendship-based situations, you can actually start to recognise when you're perhaps picking up behavioural traits that aren't useful in those situations. So, for example, in the persecutor role, it's that sense that we, and I'm quoting here, we don't use our capacity to feel, but focus on what we are thinking and what we want to achieve to the detriment of the relationships around us. So the persecutor's motto is, it's my way or no way. And the kind of hallmark of the persecutor is that when we are in this role, we lack empathy for the other or others in the relationship. So in that other kind of exchange with someone else. So it's that sense that no one else's opinion is valid, that you know exactly what we're doing or you're doing, that that the person you're talking to, or the situation, the other person doesn't have a clue what they're talking about, you're definitely right. That you kind of use that passive aggressive in a disappointed tone when someone has disappointed you. And it's that real, like, almost verge on bullying, the kind of, why are you crying? What is wrong with you? Why are you so upset in this situation? It's that lacking of empathy for someone who might be going through something challenging. So, I think sometimes we can easily slip into that when we're not really conscious of being kind. So moving on to the rescuer. So this kind of character is different to a persecutor because they have empathy. So the rescuer has empathy for someone else. But within that, as a rescuer, if you're hyper in rescuer mode, you lack empathy for yourself. So you're basically putting everyone else first without thinking about yourself, and you're allowing your own needs to be completely forgotten about. So it's best expressed, and I quote, as I know what's best for you, really. So it's kind of assuming that you know what's best, you're going to solve the situation, and it can be a bit patronising even if you don't mean that. So this is described as quite a complex place to be, because we often do it when we want to be nice and liked and loved. And, you know, I think this is often true if we've been through a situation where we are in pain and we just want to feel involved. So I definitely feel like there were times after my divorce where I probably was a bit of a persecutor, but I also was really kind of a rescuer, like just wanting still to make sure that everyone else was all right beyond myself. So it's that kind of voice of, I must help, if I don't I'll be in trouble, of course I care, only I can fix this. So it's kind of assuming that the other person in that triangle, in that relationship with you, whatever that might be, whether it's family member or a friend, is not capable of sorting out a situation themselves. And then finally we have the victim role. And then this comes from a complete feeling place. So this is totally about emotion and how you're feeling. And so when kind of placed in extreme situations, and I quote, victims believe they can't think what to do, so will look to rescuers and persecutors to do the thinking for them. So when you are in victim mode, this is where we're thinking that bad things always happen to me. So, and there can be deep resentment towards other people because it seems like everyone else is living a better life than yours. I'm not talking about you, but like ours, when we're in that kind of mode. So it doesn't mean that if you're upset about something and you lean on someone's shoulder for support, that's not necessarily it. That's kind of genuine, feeling the human emotion. It's more, and this is from the book's example, it's more when you are unable to then leave the house because you feel like you need validation for why it's happened to you. So the questions asked like, why does this always happen to me? Because you're looking for, or we are looking for, comfort in that situation that validates why it's happening to me. You kind of are almost asking someone to say, you're a bad person, this is why it's happening. So it's that kind of feeling of help, I need help, I can't think, I'm awash with feelings. And again, this is all quoted from the book. I don't know what to do, it's all too much, I just want to rush out and cry on someone's shoulder. And basically that, when you're stuck in that victim mode, it's really hard. I like to think of it as that, I don't know if you ever knew that nursery rhyme as a kid, where it was all about like going into, nobody likes me, everybody hates me, going into the garden to eat worms. And that became my personal response to divorce in some ways. And of course, yes, I was also desperately sad and hurt, so I'm not going to give myself too much of a hard time, but it was the inability to separate the emotions and the feelings from what was happening to me, and thinking that it was all happening to me because I was a bad person and that nothing good was ever going to happen to me again because I didn't deserve it. That was my absolute mentality for, I don't know, I reckon a good 2 years at least. And even if good stuff was happening around me, which I could definitely recognise and appreciate, I still would have moments where I felt like everything was rubbish and that nobody liked me and that everyone basically wanted to be mates with my ex over me. And that was all just thoughts that were going on in my head that weren't even necessarily true. Obviously, divorce or breakups are very complicated if you've got mutual friends, but it became literally how I thought, and it was quite childish. I think sometimes the victim mentality is kind of quite childish. So the book explains that movement on the triangle can be rapid or can be played out over weeks, months or years. So the victim, in inverted commas, who went home with a headache may have felt rotten for the whole day and the next one, but when they return to work and the impact of this time off hits home, they may become a persecutor of others, looking to pass blame. They might end up criticising someone who was supportive initially, in brackets a rescuer, who now feels underappreciated and slips into being a victim. And this is so powerful because a lot of the time we're doing this in our day to days or week to weeks without even realising we're doing it. And it's often sometimes if someone has perhaps wronged you slightly and you hold resentment against them, perhaps you become slightly, you become a bit like a persecutor against them, whether it's those sly digs or whether it's the fact that you just are harbouring that sense of disdain towards them that just comes across. And likewise, I think with the rescuer kind of side of things, where you just want to be loved or you want to be there for people because it validates you as a human. And it is so powerful because when bad things happen to us and we slip into that victim mindset, it literally just takes the colour away from life. And sometimes things happen completely out of the blue. I think that life can change so unbelievably quickly. Like this year has taught me that so much. Like when I had the miscarriage earlier in the year, I was like pregnant one day and then not pregnant the next. And it's like everything shifted overnight and or in a day, like throughout a day. And so it's how we're able to then respond with these situations that are really, really powerful, because if I had got stuck back into a victim mindset back in March, we're now, July? There's no way that I would have actually been able to enjoy this year like I have done. Absolutely, I grieved and it was horrible and painful. But once I'd processed the emotion, there was an opportunity to see, okay, so this is now where life is. What is coming next? Because life happens for us, not to us. So that didn't happen to me because I was a bad person or I'd done anything wrong. It was just life and it was nature. And there's a great deal of comfort in that, because we can then also remember that life is kind of cyclical. The seasons are cyclical. Everything changes around us at all times, whether that's with nature or wildlife, whether it's with the weather. There's so much that's changing around us. And it's a real reminder that things are always moving, always changing direction. And it is tough. I'm not saying, for example, if you've lost your job during the coronavirus and you don't have savings, for example, yeah, that is a hellish place to be, because ultimately the domino effect of that, that can like tumble super, super fast. So it's not about at all pretending that everything is fine. That's not it. It's about being aware when the mindset starts to shift into a sense of, well, this bad stuff is just happening to me all the time, so I'm just not going to try because it's rubbish and life is rubbish and it's really tricky. And I think it's really important to acknowledge as well that if you are so stuck in one of these kind of victim mindset-based places, or there's a link to anything like depression or any other mental health challenges, absolutely go and seek out some help. Like go and speak to your GP, have a little Google for, local charities around you perhaps. You've always got Mind, you've got Samaritans, you've got all these other amazing resources. You can apply to the council for free therapy or CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy. And so there are lots and lots of options out there. And I think that if we start to understand that things happen to us and they can be quite devastating, but if we can accept that and then feel all the stuff and be conscious of it, it's like that analogy in the book, if you lose a loved one or something goes a bit wrong and you cry, which is normal, that's fine. It's when that becomes a state that it becomes really tricky to get out of. It's when you're kind of stuck in that place where you need your friends all the time to listen to you because you're not quite able to get yourself out of the hole. And don't get me wrong, like I still have moments where I need to offload to my friends. Like I still have things from my divorce that I still have to work through that maybe I'll have the rest of my life to work through. And I kind of have to acknowledge that because I can't pretend that those emotional things aren't inside of me because I'm a human. And we can't pretend that grief just comes and goes and doesn't ever come back, whether that's with like a loss of a person or the end of a relationship or a loss of a job or a loss of a home. All these things are really connected to a great deal of loss. But within that, if you can start to then, when things go a bit bad, start to feel it all, process it all, but then see what opportunity there is in the change, then it becomes super exciting, because then anything is possible. And of course, some of these things do require that financial security, but there is always a way. And sometimes it does just mean swallowing a bit of pride and having to take a job that you didn't really want to do. Like the last 5 years, to be honest, like I've loved my job as a group trainer. I've absolutely adored it. I'm so attached to the members that I've been teaching, to everyone that's come to my classes. And when I was running the yoga studio, but there were elements of that, yeah, gosh, I absolutely love fitness and health, don't get me wrong. But ultimately, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an actor, and I went to drama school in 2015 to be an actor. And I kind of parked that dream because I couldn't afford to do it, because I didn't have any money and I didn't have any savings and I needed to pay rent, and I wanted to live a life that was full of enjoyment and love and also fun. And when you have no money, it's really challenging to keep up with everyone around you, especially if you've got friends that, have quite solid jobs. And I made a choice. I chose to follow my other passion, whether that was health or fitness and teaching. And yeah, there were days when I didn't really love it, to be honest. Like there were days when I was kind of angry at it. But I processed it because it was what I was doing, and I was grateful for the work, and I met amazing people through doing it. And there is always opportunity, like even in these jobs that you don't want to do, there's always people that you can meet. You have no idea what's around the corner. You have no idea what opportunities are going to come out of these things. And I'm so glad I did that for the last 5 or 6 years. I'm so glad I went and ran and worked in a full-time job and learned that I really didn't want to work in a full-time job ever again, being employed by someone on contract. No, thank you. Great. Learned a lesson. I know that I don't want to be out in training sessions in the winter, in the rain. Great. Tick. Learned a great lesson there. And it's not bad. It doesn't mean that I, resented it. I mean, yes, there were days in the rain over the last couple of years where I go out in the cold, and that was a real challenge, because you can't go out as a trainer and be miserable. You've got to be positive for everyone. And that takes great resilience, really. And my home life then would get the brunt of any frustration. But, these things, we kind of have to find that compromise, I think, sometimes, to work out where the opportunity lies into the future. And I think sometimes it's a great chance to really reestablish our relationships and the person that we want to be, and who do we want to be for other people, and taking that time to have empathy for those that are going through really tough times, who perhaps are in a bit of a victim mode. And it doesn't mean they're a bad person. They just need help, and they need that sense of hope and light. And sometimes as individuals, we can be really powerful, because we can validate someone else by telling them what they need to hear, because you've been there. Like, I know now, for anyone that goes through a divorce, I'm going to be extra attentive, just, validating that they are an amazing person and that their partner has missed out by not being with them anymore. Because really, that's what we want. We want to know. We want to know that we are loved, and that we want to know that we have value and that we have worth. And this is why this kind of quote of, life doesn't happen to you, but it happens for you, is so powerful, because then you realise that whatever happens, yes, feel it all when things go a bit wrong, and some things will take years perhaps to process. But within that, there is a chance to try new things. There's a chance to realise that life is short, and that it should be grasped, and that why wait for Friday for that nice meal? Go out on a Tuesday because you can. Whatever it is, take that holiday, give yourself that time off, shut the laptop and put the work away, because that company, if they needed to, they would just, drop you at the blink of an eye. You have so much more value in that picture, that it's dealing with these things on a level where you can appreciate that you have absolute power in your life to turn it into whatever you want to, whatever comes your way. And yeah, look, I know that some things, some of these things might not help when situations are super dire, but they at least can help bring light when you're struggling with that transition. And, even with like fitness plans, where you might find that you're following a plan, or you're following sessions with a PT, or you're looking to try and change your nutrition habits and something goes wrong and you fall off the wagon a little bit with that focus. Learning all this stuff really helps you get back onto that wagon or onto the bus or onto the train quicker, because you can see that you're starting to creep back towards older habits that perhaps don't give you the value that you deserve, whether that's drinking too much or overeating or blaming yourself for everything that goes wrong and neglecting your movement. And, I do feel really passionately about that. I know that I've just moaned a little bit about my work choices, and I'm not moaning. I've absolutely loved my job and I'm so grateful for it, because, like I say, I've met incredible people and I've absolutely adored it. And I think it's important that whatever happens in a job, we still take away positives where we can from it. Even if it's been awful, that's a positive. It's taught you what you don't want to do. That's amazing, and it's taught me that I absolutely adore the coaching side and this kind of thing with podcasts and hoping to have positive impact on people's lives. I wouldn't have learnt that if I hadn't gone out to these sessions and really put myself out there and learnt how to communicate and all that kind of stuff. So I do think that there's always a bit of it might not work for everyone, but I did really want to share it because sometimes life can change in a click of a finger, or in a blink of an eye, or in a situation where something is ripped away from you. And so why not live, whether it's vicariously with safety, obviously, hedonistically with safety. It's not about going nuts and destroying yourself. It's about living with that joy and passion for your life, because you are able to. You don't have to follow anyone else's roadmap. You don't have to follow a blueprint that someone else has given you. You have that power when things go a little bit wrong to say, okay, fine, that wasn't meant to be. What's coming next? It means that something better is coming next. And it just helps keep that gaze on the horizon, and that kind of open-hearted sense of positive stuff is coming your way. So, yeah, whatever happens, life is here for you. It is here to support you. It is here to enable you. You're literally a miracle being here. Life is here to really enrich your experience of being here on this planet, whatever that means for you. And that it is not happening to you. It's not, the bad stuff that's happening. It's not because you're a bad person. And I do believe that negative energy can draw in more negative energy, and vice versa with positive energy. I really think that when we're in that vibrational sense of, that's not even a word, but I've said it anyway, in that kind of environment of putting out positive energy, good stuff happens. We have greater relationships with people. We have more patience for those around us. We are kinder. We are more empathetic. And when we get into that victim mindset, or when we get into that persecutor mindset, or even as a rescuer mindset, where we forget about us in the picture and we are not who we are because we've lost that sight of consciousness a little bit, then that's when the negative stuff starts to happen. And yeah, sure, some things are out of your control. Like, I'm not saying that losing your job is because you woke up in a bad mood. It's not that. Like, some things are just not going to work out. Like relationships. Some relationships are just not meant to be. And that's because there is something or someone out there who is a better fit or a better support for the life that you're meant to live. And when you start to realise that, and realise your worth, and realise how incredible you are and how much love there is in the world for you, then incredible things continue to happen, no matter how shit the storm, no matter how much rubbish and crap and tough stuff you have to go through. You realise that there is so much opportunity in every situation. Anyway, I'm sending you so much love, and as before, please do keep listening and rating and reviewing and sharing. I've been a bit quiet on social media the last week or two. I've not been too well. I've been a bit drained and exhausted with a bit of a bad tummy. Sorry, I don't know why I shared that. You didn't need to hear that. But anyway, I am a bit more rested now, and hopefully we'll be back online. So do come follow me. I'm Kate Stirling 1 on Instagram, Get Stirling Fit, and How to Live a Stirling Life. Also on Instagram. But yes, explore those thoughts, and maybe treat yourself to the Boundaries book by Jennie, Millar and Victoria Lambert. It will change your life. Sending you tons of love for like the 50 millionth time. Have a good week, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.